Eye on the Islands is a weekly talk show dedicated to the people and the issues of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Now, here's your host for Eye on the Islands, Sarah Lazama.
It's the sixth leading cause of death in the United States and the fourth leading cause of death here in the Virgin Islands. I'm Sarah Lazama, and welcome to this edition of Eye on the Islands. We're talking about diabetes, a disease that many of you are already suffering from or could be at risk of developing. Joining me now is Ms. Ann Thurland, Director of Health Promotion and Education for the VI Department of Health, and Ms. Desiree James, Certified Diabetes Educator for the Territory. Thank you for joining me, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Diabetes affects a large number of Virgin Islanders. How many people are we talking about living in the Territory with diabetes?
According to the Department of Health telephone surveys, in 2010, 8% of the population reported that they had diabetes. But again, that's self-report. There's quite double, that number out there of persons who may have diabetes and may not know it, or, they have pre-diabetes. And you can have pre-diabetes or developing diabetes from anywhere from 6 to 10 years and not know it.
So what is diabetes?
Okay, diabetes is a disease in which the body has excess levels of glucose. And most of the food we eat, like the starches, the rice, they're turned into sugar in the body. Mm-hmm. When they're in the blood, it's called blood glucose. And the pancreas produces a hormone called insulin, and that helps the body to utilize the blood glucose properly. So when you have diabetes, either you don't make enough insulin or you don't make any at all, and that causes the buildup of blood glucose in the body.
Okay, and are there different types of diabetes?
Yeah, we have many different types of diabetes. The main ones are type 1 diabetes, which used to be called juvenile onset diabetes. And that's generally diagnosed in people that are youths that are under the age of 20. Okay. And what happens in type 1 diabetes is the pancreas is completely destroyed. It produces no insulin whatsoever. Then we have type 2 diabetes, which used to be called adult onset diabetes. And we used to see that in people over the age of 40. That has now switched. We're now seeing younger and younger people with diabetes, not just in the Virgin Islands, but nationwide. That trend has changed. We also have gestational diabetes, and that's diabetes where women develop diabetes while they're pregnant. Nobody really knows why they develop the diabetes while being pregnant, but those women often develop diabetes later in life. And we have Moody, we have many different types, but the main types are type 1, type 2, and the gestational diabetes.
So you're saying that now we're seeing more of the adult onset diabetes at a younger age?
Yes, within the last 15 years, at least 50% of the children, not just in the Virgin Islands, but nationwide, have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And this is a diabetes that you can use insulin, but you can control your diabetes with taking oral medication, your tablets, and also by diet and exercise. 15 years ago, children were virtually never diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, not only in the Virgin Islands, but also in the United States. St. Croix, I was reading an article, it was called Diabetes in the Caribbean. St. Croix was mentioned that they had 10.1% of their children were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Wow. This is the highest number of type 1 diabetes anywhere.
That's an alarming statistic.
It is.
What are the symptoms of diabetes? What happens? How do you know?
Well, usually people are diabetic for 5 to 6 years, on average 5.5 years before they're ever diagnosed. A lot of times we have the signs and symptoms and we just don't think about it. Some of the first things people come in complaining of are excessive thirst. They come in, I'm thirsty all the time, I just want to drink water all the time, nothing quenches the thirst. Then the next thing that happens is they have excessive urination. They feel tired often, and they also complain of itching of the skin. And a lot of times they also present with skin infections. And what happens is, as Anne said, in the digestive process, I tell everyone, think about the food you eat as the fuel for your body.
Right.
So what happens is when we eat, the food is digested, and it turns into the simplest form of sugar, which is glucose. The purpose of the insulin is to attach to your cells. It opens up the cells and it allows the glucose to go in, and that's how we get the energy. So now if you think about that your body's supposed to be absorbing this sugar to give you the energy. If it's not being absorbed, you have that fatigue. You feel really tired because the sugar is not getting where it needs to be for your body to use it properly. Then you have the excessive thirst. What happens when you drink something with a lot of sugar in it?
You get thirsty.
You get thirsty. So this is your body's way of saying, hey, I have all this excess sugar. I need to get rid of it. Do something.
Right.
The kidney is now the filtering organ of the body. The kidney tries to get rid of stuff that shouldn't be there. The kidney produces urine. Henceforth, you have the excessive urination. Then the skin is the largest organ in the body. Everything goes through the skin. The blood must go there. So you have this excess sugar. It causes that itching, and oftentimes you have yeast infection because yeast needs sugar to grow.
Okay.
So you tend to have that high rates of yeast infections that people come complaining of, men and women alike. They tend to have skin rashes like ringworm type of
Irritation.
infection. Yes. And that's because the sugar in your body allows the yeast, which is naturally found in your body, to ferment and overgrow in the body. So those are some of the first things people come in complaining of. The excessive thirst, excessive urination, the itching, and the excessive fatigue. Generally, those are the first things they come in complaining about. And people often have the signs and symptoms. We always find excuses. I was working outside, it was really hot, and that'll account for why I'm thirsty. Well, I'm drinking a lot more, so I'm going to the bathroom a lot more.
Right.
So we can always justify why these things are happening.
But if you're seeing these signs, you should probably get checked out.
Yes.
Okay.
And we can do a simple test in a doctor's office. It's a finger stick. And that simple test can tell us, hey, your blood sugar level is elevated or not.
Okay, so we know if we see these signs or symptoms, maybe we should go get checked out. But what are some of the other risk factors?
Okay, risk factors for developing diabetes also comes with populations like in the VI, large African American or Afro-Caribbean population, large Hispanics. I know also other groups like the Asians or the American Indians. In the Pima Indians, it's over 50% of the population that develop diabetes.
So is
Also with
that's a hereditary thing, something you could be born with then?
Yeah, I like to look at it as you've taken cultures and they're now in a different environment. They're not eating the way they should have because the original traditional diet was probably much better than what it is now.
Well, let's talk about our diet for a little while, because I know as Virgin Islanders, we like to eat a lot of the potato stuffing and the rice and the macaroni and the plantains, and that's all very heavy, starchy foods that we all know then is converted to sugar.
Yes, and that's where you'll have the overweight, which is another risk factor for diabetes. And in the VI, it's about 65% of the population that are obese or overweight when you add them together. So that's quite alarming. The other contributing factor that is also cultural too is a lot of people are physically inactive. And I think we see that also with children. Years ago, we noted that summertime you'd see a lot of children playing outside. But now they're inside the house, they're playing the video games instead of riding the bikes or, walking through the neighborhoods or playing games that they used to. So they're more sedentary too.
And that must go for adults too, because I know we spend a lot of time in our office, sitting down in front of the computer. What kinds of little things can we do maybe to, get out more? Walk the dog.
Just get up and move. And and I tell my clients, I said, the traditional form of exercise is no longer there. We now consider anything that causes your heart rate to increase. We consider that exercise. Mowing your lawn, washing your car, anything that gets you moving and gets your heart rate up, you can now consider it exercise. And there was a study that was recently published that said 10 minutes of vigorous activity does more good for you than 30 minutes of slow walking. So if you can get up and do something, do anything, just get physically active, get that heart rate up. Those are things that we need to do.
I know there is a risk assessment test out there that people can take at home while they're sitting down in their living room or wherever in front of the computer. Tell us a little bit about that test.
Okay, we call it like the paper or pencil test. And at our website, you can also go there and take the test electronically. You'll get your results right away. But basically, it's getting people to assess their risk for ever developing diabetes. And they ask questions like if you've had a baby weighing more than 9 pounds. If you have, that's a sign that you may have been developing diabetes or you're at risk later in life. So you have to remember throughout my life, I have to check more frequently, to make sure that I'm not at risk for diabetes. Do you have a family member who've had diabetes, a brother, a sister, father, mother? Is your height and weight above what it should be? Not your height, but your weight above what it is for your height. And that's also a risk factor. Are you 65 years of age and get little exercise? And are you between 45 and 65? And just being over 65 is also a risk factor for diabetes. So this test gives you a score, and you know whether you are at no risk, moderate risk, or at risk for diabetes.
Okay, and what's that website so we can...
The website is usvidiabetes.org.
Okay.
Yes.
So to take that risk assessment test, that's usvidiabetes.org. When we come back, we'll find out what steps you can take to prevent the development of diabetes and how those who already have the disease can better manage it.
Diabetes is serious, and it's hard work managing it every day. But there's hope. If you keep your blood glucose or sugar levels in your target range, you can reduce your chance of serious health problems. It's worth the effort. Make a plan. Take things that you believe you can do. Try to walk 30 minutes per day. Ask for help from friends or family. Managing your diabetes is not easy, but it's worth it.
Visit www.usvidiabetes.org for more information.
Eye on the Islands puts the focus on local issues and events that affect you. I'm Sarah Lazama, inviting you to join me for some interesting conversation and timely information, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. and weekends at 12 noon only on the Access Channel, local cable channel 6 on St. Croix and channel 10 on St. Thomas.
There are more than 50 ways to prevent diabetes. Many Virgin Islanders are at risk for type 2 diabetes. Losing a small amount of weight, being physically active for 30 minutes most days, and eating healthy will prevent or delay diabetes. There are many ways to prevent diabetes. Find out how. Visit www.usvidiabetes.org for more information.